Hello, everyone. Let's allow a few minutes for other participants to join. And in the meantime, can anyone confirm about my audio quality? Am I audible to you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Pradeep. Okay, so actually few of the attendees are actually facing problem in order to join the session. So I just copied the invite link and I'm pasting that link into this chat. So if anyone of you is actually into the WhatsApp group, can you just pass this message into the WhatsApp group if it's worked to join directly? No worries. So I think the link is already sent on email as well. Anyway.
Good evening.
Sorry.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Good evening, good morning, all of you. So let's just start. All right, so let me share my screen. And let's try to make this session more interactive because it's a demo session. So it's good to have your question, whatever you have in your mind. All right, I have shared my screen. And just let me know if it's visible fine. The fonts are visible enough.
Can't see as of now. Yeah, it's sharing.
Is it reflecting now?
Yeah, looks fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, so yeah, let's begin with today's session. And all right, so before we actually jump into the course coverage in today's topic, just a quick one-line introduction about me. Myself, Amit Gupta, and I will be your instructor throughout this course. And I'm having 8+ years of experience in performance testing and engineering. So with that, I mean, the focus would be on performance testing with JMeter. Any other questions you have apart from JMeter or related to any performance concept, you can just put that as well. All right, so a quick talk about this course coverage, what we will be covering in this course and what's the and who actually can expect what from this course. Okay, so this is designed basically from very basic till intermediate. So if you are quite new to JMeter, it's good, you can join. Yeah, I will be covering from the basic and we will be going till intermediate. So the focus would be learning about the JMeter in detail. But since JMeter is a performance testing tool, so parallelly we need the performance concepts as well. So unless we don't know the performance concepts and terminologies, we cannot expertise JMeter. So what we will be doing, like we will be learning performance testing concepts and terminologies and applying those in learning JMeter specifically. Okay, because if you know the performance testing and concepts, that is common across all the performance testing tools like load runner or wave load or you name any tool, but mostly our concepts would be applying those things into JMeter. Okay, do I have any question? Or if not, then please just keep yourself mute. Hey, Gaurav, can you please mute yourself?
Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, please ensure you keep yourself on mute. And if you have any question, just let me know. All right. So I was talking about learning the performance testing concepts and terminologies and applying those in terms of JMeter. And in this course, we will be learning about scripting. So scripting from very basic till intermediate. And in covering scripting, we will be looking about the designing the scripting, the different ways of generating a script manually or through the recording tools available. Like there is an inbuilt capability of recording the script into the JMeter itself. There are additional tools. So we will be looking about the various options of generating JMeter script. We'll talk about creating the scenarios. There are different scenarios we can create. If you're not very much familiar with the term scenario, what these actually mean is no worry, but this is a kind of the way we will be hitting the application with how many users for how long, generating how much throughput, or hitting with how much threads. So all different combinations, we call it scenario. So we will be looking about how to create different scenarios in JMeter. And these scenarios are basically requirement driven. So whatever requirement is there, we will be designing based on that requirement. We'll look about the performance reporting details. What are the things we should be including in report and what are the areas we will be looking into the performance report. And further, it's once we are familiar with the scripting part, we will be looking at more advanced scripting concepts like data-driven testing. So if you have a script, you can make it data-driven. You can input any number of data or different data within the same script. Then we look about the correlation, how correlation work, what actually correlation is. Actually, it's a way of handling dynamic values like JSON IDs or any dynamic value which is returned in response. So handling those dynamic values is actually known as correlation. So we'll look about the different ways of dealing with correlation in JMeter. We'll talk about database testing. So what's the need of database testing and how you can design a database test plan from very beginning till end. What are the components required and how exactly you can design a database test plan and you can do a database testing directly. We'll talk about REST APIs scripting. So I believe you already familiar with the Postman and other scripting like Fiddlers another endpoints tools like Fiddler and Postman. So those things can be easily scripted in JMeter as well. So if the requirement is to test the REST APIs with different methods, we can definitely use that into the JMeter as well. We'll talk about a bin shell or JSR223. It's not sampler actually, it's a JSR223. If I say elements are more correctly pre and post processor. Okay, so we'll talk about the bin shell and JSR223 as well. All right, so this is the coverage, and if you have looked at it, it's quite broad coverage in terms of learning things from basic to intermediate, because in basic we will be learning all the basic concepts and terminologies, and in intermediate parts we will be learning about correlation, dealing with the script if there is an error, how we can do that using different functions available, and enhancing your script further by using data driven and other handling dynamic things. Okay, so yeah, so this is about the coverage, and in the meantime I have a question in chat. So the question is like without completing core Java, is it okay to continue with this program? Okay, I think it's about the pre-requirement of this course, what I understood, like what the things you should be knowing before starting with this course. Yeah, definitely you can start if you are already working, you have some experience in software testing, you can opt for this course. But in terms of core Java, if I say like you know the basic concepts of variables, loops, and just the very basic programmings that we already learned in our graduation program, that would be quite enough to go with this course, because JMeter is basically a tool which is on most of the UI part or the GUI part. There are a few advanced concepts. There we need some programming language, and those are the details or those programming skills you must implement in JSR or bin shell pre and post processor. But this comes under kind of a high level requirement. But if you still have basic knowledge on Java, you can also avail most of the things. You can also use bin shell or JSR223 by applying those very basic concepts like using variables, how to declare a variable, how to use that, very basic for loops, while loops, and if conditions. So if you already having knowledge on those, you can still use the bin shell and JSR223. So bottom line is, it's not mandatory to have the very good programming knowledge to go for this course. Yeah, so if you already cover around 90% of core Java, so that would be quite sufficient to go for this course. No worry, you can definitely opt for this. All right, so any further questions so far? Because there was a question on this pre-requirement about the knowledge of Java or the basic programming. Any other questions from anyone?
I don't have a knowledge in a Java, but right now I am just taking the course is name Python. Earlier course is a morning 8 o'clock. I'm just learning a Python, but I don't have a knowledge in a Java. So it is a correct course for me.
See, as I mentioned, like this, only programming you need in JMeter is going to be during a very specific requirement, and that requirement I believe is not more than 5%. So anyway, if you don't have any programming knowledge or programming skill, but you have the performance, if you have the testing concepts, like you are already knowing the software testing concepts, like what software testing is and what exactly we do. You are in an industry having at least 1 year of experience. So definitely, I mean, it's not that much mandatory to have the Java or Python in order to go for this course. That's if you have that, that will help you in learning very advanced concepts. That's also, I mean, good to have, but initially no one is going to ask you that level of advanced questions in JSR or Beam Shell, which will demand Java skills or any programming skills. Okay, so again, you have Python knowledge. So I directly have not implemented Python into JMeter, but yes, there is a way that you can write the Python code rather than the Java code. So, I mean, I'm talking about the language and syntax. So by default, the Java is supported into JMeter, but with the help of jar files, or you can extend to use the Python as well into JMeter. So you can look about the compatibility. I think that's quite doable. If this is the concern, which is just 5% of this entire course coverage, but still there is a way to use your Python skills in the JMeter.
Okay.
All right, so let's start with the topics. And what is JMeter? So a very basic question. And for that, what I would say, you go to just go to the JMeter official website. Okay. So this definition is quite good. It's a open source software, which is 100% pure Java application, designed to load test functional behavior. So initially it was designed not for the performance actually, but to test the functional behavior. But now it's being used to measure performance as well. It was originally designed to test web application, but
sorry, I'm interrupting you. Your voice is not proper clear. It's some noise and some disturbance from your side.
so is it for all?
Yes.
Okay, just a moment.
Just like a wavy sound.
Okay, I got it. Is it fine now? Or is it still the same?
It's good now.
It's like earlier? It's better now.
Yeah, it's better now.
I mean, it's good to go, or is it still manageable to go?
Still manageable.
Good to go.
Yes, could you please speak a bit louder?
Let me just try adjusting my mic.
You're quite okay here. I can hear you, please.
Okay, how is it now?
Yes, quite better.
Quite
All right.
normal.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, okay, so on JMeter definition, what I was, I taken you to this website, which you can refer. It's the official JMeter website. So here it's a quite clear definition written. It's a 100% Java application. So you know it's a 100% pure Java application, which is open source as well. Which means, I mean, you need not to buy any license. It's a free software, which is Java based. You can use it as a commercial purpose. And initially it was designed for testing functional behavior, but now it has extended to use for the performance testing as well. And what can I do with it? So basically it supports wide varieties of protocols. If you look at the ability to load and perform performance test, many different application server protocol types. So basically with the help of JMeter, what you can test is a web application running on HTTP and HTTPS protocol. Another different protocol, SOAP and REST web services, FTP, which is file transfer protocol, JDVC database via JDVC protocol. So many protocols supported, but we are not going to cover all these because if you look, the most of the interactions we do with just with the HTTP and HTTPS. So 90 to 95%, these are just the protocols that we use. Most of the applications runs on. Another protocol that we are going to cover throughout this course is the JDVC. So as I mentioned, there is a coverage of doing database testing. So in that, we will be using JDVC. And if you know that, okay, how these protocols can be used in JMeter, definitely you would be able to use different other protocols on your own. Okay, so it's all about like learning the things that how I can start using JMeter and how I can explore the things available in JMeter. So I will guide you. Basically, we will be dealing with just these two protocols. And as I mentioned, like most of the applications just deal with these protocols only, HTTP and HTTPS. So you would be able to design with, if based on requirement, if you got a requirement to use a TCP or FTP protocol, you can definitely do on your own. So take this website as an example for your reference, go through it, look, there are multiple things to explore, okay, like using JMeter. Okay, so if I just click using JMeter, there is a like user manual. Okay, if I click on getting started, many things. So take this as a reference, go after completion of this. After completion of this class. So pre-requirement we discussed. And what is JMeter we fairly discussed, okay. And since it's a Java-based application, so if I talk quickly, it's a pure Java-based application. So the platform is, no more a foundation. So basically this application, we are talking about JMeter, you can run on any platform, on any OS. So currently I'm using Windows, or being on a Java-based, it's a Java-based application. So what I only need is the Java running in my system. Similarly on Mac or on Linux as well. So you can simply have the Java running in your operating system and you can directly run the JMeter over there. Okay, and I believe you already have, whatever operating system you are using, you already have Java set up in your system. So if you already have, what you have to do in order to install JMeter, and pre-requirement we talked. So let's here quickly add another point like installing JMeter. I will just guide you very quickly.
Before installing, we need Java.
Yes.
In your system, which one?
Yes.
Java DB में से which one you can install? Because I don't have it.
All right. So yeah, allow me a moment. So if you go to the home page, okay, and here on the left hand side, download releases. So the latest version is 5.5 and it requires Java 8+. So any Java 8+ version will work for it. So currently in my system, I have Java 8.3 something. Let me quickly check Java version. So this is what I have, 1.8.0341. So any Java 8+ will work. Okay, so go to the official JMeter website. On the left hand side, download releases. So the latest version will always come at top and it requires Java 8+. And here are the things like you have to always download binaries. You can look at the source as well because it's a open source tool. You can look at the source as well, that what exactly is written as a part of this JMeter. But we have to run this directly into the system and not looking at the source. You have to download it from binaries.
Is this the latest version?
Yes, it's the latest version, the 5.5.
Okay.
So on Windows, I would recommend just downloading this zip one. So if you just click on it, it will start downloading this zip. And for Mac and Linux, you can go for this .tzz extension. Okay, so I will demonstrate this for on my Windows system, but the launching process will be just a slight different, because on Windows you have to just go into the bin folder into the home directory, and then you have to just double click on jmeter.bat. So there is a batch file with extension .bat. You can just double click on it. Slight different on Linux and on Mac. So into that there is a sh file that you have to execute. Okay, so just look around.
Does it to be run from the terminal now?
Yes, from the terminal itself. You have to go through the terminal in Mac and Linux. I think you can easily find the way, like how to just
Yeah,
run
I
the
understand.
JMeter.
I have done.
All right, and once the JMeter is up and running in your system, the everything, irrespective of platform, will go similarly. Either it's running on Linux, Mac, or Windows. So it's downloaded. I mean, the download has started, but let me cancel it because I already did that. So if I show you my downloads,
SHA 512, is there one option and a download? Yes, SHA 512.
no. You have to download from the binary section only.
Okay, in binary section is the other one after the zip, no?
Okay, no, so this is just for the verification, like you downloaded it and then you can verify it. So just go for the first link only.
Okay.
Okay, so once you downloaded it, what you have to do is to extract it at any location in your system. It doesn't matter, you can extract it at any location, like I did into my D drive under my folder W2A. So here I have extracted it. Okay, so once you extract, you will get this folder, and under this you will get different folders like binary, documents, extra, libraries, licenses. And on Windows, it's going to be very simple to launch it. Inside the bin directory, there is a jmeter.bat, or you can look at the type Windows batch file. You just double click on it. It will pop up a command prompt, and you will get your JMeter out. Okay, so do not close it, because if you do so, this one will also go away. So keep it running, and this is the main UI of your JMeter, which we are interested in. Okay, Mac and Linux users, just try launching it. Make sure you have proper Java setup with the path, and the path is there. I mean, the in your environment variable or into the path itself. So just try doing that. If you face any difficulty, you just reach out to me. And I believe if you already have access to the WhatsApp group or not, but you can reach out to me on this email address. JMeter@way2automation.com. All right, so I believe you are already done with this installation. And by the way, it's not installation anymore. It's just like you already have a folder, and there are like executable files or the jar files. Basically, if you look at this jmeter.bat, by opening it into the text pad, it's anyway hitting this jar. Okay, and similarly, the same thing goes into the Mac or Linux as well. So it's just like you downloaded it, you extracted it, you have your Java setup, you just now go and launch this application. Okay, so you will get this. All right. So let's talk about what is performance testing. And I taken this definition from Wikipedia. Few things, a few keywords from this definition. If you read it, So you will find like how a system, let me read it. So in software quality assurance, performance testing is in general a testing practice performed to determine how a system performs in terms of responsiveness. So this is something you can note, like in terms of responsiveness and stability. So these two keywords basically so far under a particular workload. Okay, so it's like the evaluation of an application, like how application perform in term of responsiveness and stability when there is a workload there. So it's like when the application is under workload, or basically it's being used by multiple users or multiple consumers, then it's good to look at the responsiveness and stability of that application. So basically evaluating these characteristics, we call it characteristics like responsiveness and stability. These two are key characteristics of performance, and this is what we generally focus on in our doing in our performance testing. Responsiveness and stability when there is a workload applied on the application. Okay, so this actually definition covers a wide aspect, like responsiveness and stability we focus on under a particular workload. And what we are actually going to do throughout this course is actually evaluating these three things mainly. We will be looking at the responsiveness and stability, and we will simulate a workload as well. Okay, because this is what the performance testing is to look at the responsiveness and stability under a particular workload. So we are going to simulate this particular workload on our own, and we are going to look at the responsiveness and stability as well. So now the question is like how we can simulate this workload. Well, for that we have JMeter. So JMeter is a performance testing tool or a load testing tool that can help you generating workload against an application. Okay, so basically JMeter is a performance testing tool or a load testing tool that can help you generating workload. But it's not just generating workload. Now JMeter is, I can say, a complete IDE, integrated development environment, that can help you designing the test plan, generating a script, generating the workload, and then looking at the responsiveness and stability, or basically analyzing the test or analyzing the runs you did. So it's a kind of tool which will help you evaluating the all aspects, which are from scripting part till execution part and till analysis part. Okay, so all these things like looking at the responsiveness and generating the workload, we are going to achieve with the help of this JMeter tool. All right, any question?
I have a doubt. One question, sir. Is this only for the web testing application, or it's going to work also desktop?
Okay, it's a good question. So the focus would be on web applications mainly. Okay, we will be looking at the examples and scenarios focusing on web application. And what I say, so now, I mean, for this course, we will be targeting on web applications only. But to answer your question, if I talk about the desktop application, okay, let's say there is a desktop application. So nowadays, these desktop application, at the end, it's going to call some API, and that's going to be handled by a backend server. Okay, so if we talk about the desktop application performance, now you can think like anytime a desktop application is always going to be used by a single user. Okay, because there is a desktop application installed, and I'm going to use that. So from that application point of view, which is just installed in a system, in a specific system, is just a single user, which is me, going to interact with that application. Okay, so what's the the problem going to be with this desktop application? I am the single user. So from UI point of view, or the usability point of view, for that application only, there is going to be no performance related problem. Only problem is going to be like there is a desktop application, which is on our request, we are interacting with that desktop application. And that desktop application is going to call some backend server in order to provide the response back. So only performance bottleneck or only performance concern is going to be that API or the backend server, not the desktop application, because it's just being used by a single user. And now you can assume that there are multiple users, or there is a desktop application which is installed in 1,000 computers. And if those 1,000 users, those 1,000 computers, or I can say it like users, are using that desktop application at a time, so only load is going to be handled by this backend server, because the application will be used by those 1,000 different users on 1,000 different computers. Okay, so application wise, it's going to be a single use, but what matters at the end is the backend server or the APIs through which we are going to request and getting the response back. Because if there is a delay in response from backend server, your application will keep spinning. Okay, so in most of the cases, we do not concern about the usability or the uses of that desktop application. It's all matter that what's the server or what's the component behind that desktop application is being used.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep. All right, so what exactly is responsiveness? I think you got the fair idea. Like responsiveness is just like the response time, like how fast my application is. If I request for a login page, how quickly my login page is returned to me. And if I put my username and password and hit login, how much time it takes, how much time the application takes to get me logged in. Okay, so the responsiveness is like how fast my application is, how quickly it responds to my request. This is the key factor we look during our performance test. Another characteristics or the main factor of performance is like concurrent users, or the users, like how many users are using the application at a moment. Okay, so you can assume like if there is a peak season or peak time going on, your application will be having more users actively into your application doing the activities. Let's assume there is a the application you have is basically any e-commerce application which sells some merchandise or any item. So during the peak or sale seasons, you will have more users. So worth looking like during the peak seasons or during the sales season, how many concurrent users my application can handle. Another way or another key factor to look for the performance is the request per second. Like how many requests per second or per minute my application can sustain. You can think about login requests per second. So if I say that there are 1,000 users trying to log in into the application simultaneously. So is my application going to handle those 1,000 users or not? So in that case, what you can write it like 1,000 requests per second to login page. So this is going to be a key criteria or factor looking into your performance, like how many requests per second your application can handle. And this can be for any specific page, either for login or launch or checkout or add to bag. This is the key thing that we noticed. Again, like data transfer, like how much data transmission is going during the peak season or peak load or during our performance testing. So it's like data sent and received in KB or MB. Okay, so these are the major things that we look for during our performance testing, and these actually
I
define.
have a question. What is the TPS and how will we will be covering to that to how we achieve a particular TPS?
Mhm.
I just want to understand these two things.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So basically, when I talked about the performance scenario creation, that covers all your part. Like TPS is just the transaction per second. So when covering this scenario, we are going to cover this TPS in a detail. And since I don't know about the audience, like um, so I just tried to make this session very basic. But on your question, TPS is going to be covered in a detailed manner. And the scenario would be like if the requirement is to make a scenario hitting 50 TPS against the application, how we are going to design that. Okay, so all these details will be covered, no worry on it.
Okay, one additional question. I received recently a requirement that we need to achieve 3000 TPS for 1 hour. I want detail on that during that session. How to retain that period of the time that a particular TPS should be maintainable for a long duration.
Okay, yeah, that's good. But I think for this demo session, that would be not a very relevant question.
Yeah,
So
I will not be derailing. I will not be derailing you.
Okay, so what I would recommend, like to just to answer you very quickly, in order to maintain a certain TPS, there is a different thread group available. You can make use of arrival thread group, which will give you that capability to maintain a certain TPS for certain duration. Okay, otherwise you have to calculate like what's the average response time, and then based on that you have to put your users. But this arrival thread group will just ask you that how much TPS you want, and that will adjust the users. So try looking for the arrival thread group. That will help you on that.
Sorry, I got a bit confused about this whole TPS thing. I'm a complete novice in this, so I'm a bit confused now. What were I talking about, the TPS thing?
All right, so TPS is just a short form which we call like a transaction per second.
All right.
Okay, so you can think it like I talked about request per second. Okay, so if I say that let's talk about the login page. Okay, and when we talk about a page, it's like a page is going to be a request, but I can say that this is my transaction, which within that I'm considering this login page. So in that case, your transaction and your request will be similar. So either you say transaction per second or request per second. But there is a slight difference that you will come to know in next session, that why we call transaction per second and why we call request per second. So what that exactly difference is, but not to confuse for now, just consider a transaction as a page for now. Okay, let's so I believe so far we are clear on this responsiveness, concurrent users, requests per second, and data transferred. And if I quickly talk about the different type of performance testing, so one type is the load testing. Okay, so what exactly the load testing is? It's a kind of it's a regular load we validate when there is a new release slash code slash change happens. Okay, or you can call load testing as a regular performance testing, which an application can handle happily. What exactly this means is an application can handle happily. So in load testing, we are going to put some load against the application, which is not going to be very high load for that application. And that load we are talking about is something that the application can handle very easily or happily. Okay, so performing that type of testing, we call it a load testing. Now think about the login page example itself. Okay, I know I evaluated, or I know that my application can handle 500 users login per minute. And if I run 500 users login per minute test, that will be something called as load testing. But again, with this 500 users login per minute, my application is happy and it's throwing 0% error. Okay, and responding in 1 second, which is quite a nice number. My application is responding in 1 second. Basically, the response time is 1 second, and there is 0% error or no error at all when 500 users login per minute is done. Okay, so we can call it a load testing because we are putting load, and my application is easily handling that load. My application is happy, everything is going well. Now you can think of like, this is not the maximum capacity of my application. My application can handle more than this. And I figured out like, okay, 1100 users login per minute is the maximum capacity. So not to confuse for now, because these numbers, like I'm talking about 500 or 1100, these numbers we have to find out based on some criteria that what's the maximum capacity of my application is. So for now, just assume like 1100 users login per minute is the maximum capacity for my application. Why? Because I tried another run with 1150 users login per minute, and I found that there are errors. And this is going to be around, let's say you call it 2% error. Okay, and at that moment, the response time was 5 seconds. And at 1100, there was 0% error. The response time was somewhere around 1.5 seconds. Okay, so now let's assume that you know the maximum capacity of your application. Just these are just the numbers just for the understanding, which is going to be 1100 logins per minute. And this is you identified as a maximum capacity because with this there was just 0% error. Now there was a increase in response time as compared to 500 users login from 1 second to 1.5 seconds. But this I consider as a maximum capacity of my application. Why? Because this is I'm calling as a maximum capacity, because if you reach above this, if I reach to 1150 users login per minute, I started seeing errors. Okay, and also I see that the response time is now degraded quite, and it has reached from 1.5 second to 5 seconds. So this is something not acceptable. Okay, let's assume that this is not acceptable. All right, now based on this, we define the type of performance testing. So if I test my application with its maximum capacity with 1100 users per minute, login per minute, I will call this testing as a stress testing, because I am stressing out my application with its maximum capacity. Okay, so such a testing, when you are hitting your application with its maximum capacity, and this capacity might be defined by various factors, either based on errors, either based on response time, or either based on something behind the application server characteristics, like CPU reaching 80% or 90%, memory reaching 90% or something. So there is a certain limit which is defined. In terms of this, you can think of error percentage or the response time. So till this, we are good, but going above 1100, we got errors. So this is the maximum capacity, and testing with maximum capacity is known as a stress. And happy handling for the application, testing with that is the load testing. So do remember?
Amit, I have a question. How do we benchmark these criteria? Either we seek information from someone, or is there a way to benchmark these values?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So either you seek information from someone, and those someone are going to be the architect, the upper management, and that's going to be the product owner, or somewhere from business, that okay, business has strictly defined that I cannot afford more than 1.5 seconds of response time for login page. Okay, so if either you have those requirements, and on your question, those are called NFRs, okay, non-functional requirements. So if you are lucky, you will get these non-functional requirements already written for you. Like, okay, this is the maximum capacity which is defined in terms of either response time, or in terms of error percentage, or in terms of users. Whatever is defined is already with you, that you can take as a benchmark or as a reference, defining your maximum capacity. Or if it's already not with you, you are going to present some number, like you can, now you are responsible to present these numbers to your management team or to your business, and now they are going to take a decision. Okay, that's fine, like we can afford up to 1100 with this, but we cannot go beyond it. So now they will come up with their decision. Okay, this looks very fine, we cannot afford more than this, and they now are going to be your further benchmarks.
Okay, thank you.
What would be the difference between stress testing and volume testing? Seems like they both are the similar terms.
Yeah, kind of, but it's not quite similar. So in stress, now we are dealing with the maximum capacity of any of the area. Like I can talk about the login page. Okay, and the stress is kind of like okay, we are dealing with a page. Let's talk about the login. So we know that the maximum capacity for my login is now defined as 1100 users. With that, we are acceptable. But this login page is something not going to generate a volume on the application if we have a kind of a page where we are fetching some historical data. Let's say there is a tabular data we are getting on a detail page where there are at a time 500 lists are displayed, and this can be from last 1 month or last 1 year. Okay, so if you think about this use case, like fetching some historical data from the application, there you are dealing with many data. You're requesting something, and in return your application is going to return you Just a second. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Oh, all right, it's black to me. Yeah, it's come now. All right, so in return, your application is going to return you a lot many data. So volume testing is something we identify the area of the application, or we intentionally try to respond our application back with lot many data. Okay, so volume is something we talk about. The transmission is going to be high. So that use case are most relevant to volume testing.
Okay, got it.
All right, so yeah, and now we talk about volume we already covered, and if we quickly talk about the endurance. So basically, when we talk about the load or the stress, so load testing or stress testing are generally going to be having a duration of around 2 hours, or in most of the cases we do not go more than 1 hour. Okay, but it can be up to 1 hour or 2 hours. So these are just the duration we regularly do for evaluating the load and stress, or evaluating the performance of the application for this testing. But when we talk about the endurance, we run our load for more than, I mean, beyond these 1 or 2 hours. We keep it running for 8 hours, even 12 hours, and you can even think of 24 hours and more. Okay, so load testing, so whatever the load capacity we have, or so basically endurance is mostly, when we talk about endurance, we generally talk about the duration. Okay, but it's the load that's for load testing load, not the stress one, because you can give it a try. There is no such restriction that, okay, in endurance, what load you should put, the stress one or the maximum one, or the happy handling, which my application can handle happily. So you can try with both, but I would recommend, like, if you are going with the stress, you might not be able to sustain for that much period. And there is no such restriction, but I would suggest, like, in most of the cases, we test our application with a load which my application can easily handle, and that we extend for 8 hours and 12 hours or 24 hours. So idea is to look like, if there is a load continuous for more than 8 hours and 12 hours, what's the behavior of that period? I mean, what's the behavior of my application during that period? Is my application going to crash after 4 hours, 8 hours, or 12 hours, or it's going to sustain? So to evaluate those behavior, we do endurance testing. All right, and I think spike is something that you know about the the word itself. It's a quick load. I mean, there is a quick and sudden load at in your application at a very short time of frame. So let's say there is you can think of like IRCTC or any sales day. You know that there is a sale going on at 12 a.m. Okay, so at that point, the chances of like multiple users, hundred of thousands of users, start hitting your application at that point of time, and you will notice a sudden increase in load. So how your application behave for those quick loads, that is evaluated by designing the spike testing. So it's all about like designing the scenarios. If you talk about load, you must be knowing that what's the happy load you are going to put. If you talk about stress, it's like putting a maximum load. Endurance, a very long duration load, and spike, a quick load in a very short time of frame. We talked about volume as well. Okay, too much talking, and I would say, like, if you're going to join this, basically next one class and another class is going to be a more in order to build concepts and application, we will be talking a little bit more as compared to practical, but onward 2 and 3 classes, we are just going to move completely into practical manner. Let's talking. I mean, wherever is required to build the concept, definitely we are going to talk, but the more interactions we will be having with the JMeter only. Okay, let's have your question if you have any, or I will just go quickly designing a test plan in JMeter. I will show that how quickly you can design a script. So currently we are going to design it manually. There are tools available, as I mentioned, that you can use to record your script as well. Okay.
Oh, just quick questions. In the real time, like when we practice in the lab, what are the applications that we are going to use in this JMeter testing?
All right, so that's a good question. So for now, in order to build our concepts and to learn designing the scenarios in test plan and script and all, we are going to deal with this application, which is available. It's a dummy application available, accessible for all of you. That will help you quickly designing your scenario. But when it comes to putting a high load and multiple users load, it's not recommended to hit this application. So what I will do, I will provide a local copy of this application. So it's just a jar file. So there would be a setup required in your local system. What you can do, you can have this application running in your local machine, and you can hit with the multiple users and more users you want. You got it?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the application, which is a dummy one-page store.octopuff.com that we are going to use currently. And as I mentioned, I will provide a local copy, which is going to be a jar file for this application, which you can put in your local system and you can hit your local system. So in that case, you can run a performance test with multiple users, with 10, 50 or 100 users. I mean, it's now come to your app local system capacity, like how much hardware your system has in terms of CPU and memory, so that you can run with more users. All right, so when it comes to test plan designing or script designing, so the first thing you need to understand before designing a actually script.
Can you please paste that application? Sorry for that interruption.
You want the URL for this one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when I say that, okay, go design a test plan. So first you should be like, what's your application is? Okay. What pages to cover? And when I call like what pages to cover, we simply call it a flow. That what flow you have to test, because if I talk about this little application itself, there are multiple flows that can be like it can be like just go and sign in. Okay, so this can be a performance flow, like I launch the application, I hit the sign in button, and then I go sign in. So there are 2-3 pages cover, like I launch the application and then click login, and then actually post, or you can say like login post. What this means is like providing username and password and hitting login button. Or I can call it click login page link. Okay, so when you are asked to do performance testing for any application, you must be understanding that what part you have to test, because the coverage can be very wide. For this application itself, there can be multiple areas to test. The one area, one flow, it can be like launch application, click login, and then just do the login. So this can be a performance testing for login page itself. Another flow can be, so if I call it flow 1, and then flow 2, so it can be like launch, click login, and login post. And another thing can be like account section. Okay. Another flow can be like, rather than going into account, you go launch, click login, actually provide your login details, and then you go any of these categories like fish, dogs, cats, reptiles, and then you cover end-to-end flow, like choosing a product ID and then adding that to a cart, and then proceeding to checkout, and then providing your payment details, and then finally placing your order, and then signing out. Okay, so there can be multiple flows or areas to cover. So you must be specific that what pages or what flow you have to cover. You have to pre-written those before going to design your test plan, or basically going to create a script within your JMeter. So you must be certain on the pages, like what pages I have to cover, what's the need of performance testing, basically what areas I have to cover. And if try combining the maximum requirement you have in a single script, but if it's not possible, just try distributing the flows into different script and test those in different runs. It's not always possible to cover all the areas of the application in a single run. So it's like you divide the different test cases or different use cases. You design a specific test plan for that specific use case. You run that, you see the behavior, and then you design a different use case for different part, test that, and see the behavior. So you should be basically knowing that what you are testing, what pages are under coverage, and then your performance objective must be specific to a certain flow.
Sorry, I have a question, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, please. I was wondering, given that you're telling us what to test, my question is, are there criteria that could help us determine exactly what to test?
Okay, so, all right. I think we need to talk a little bit about NFRs. So NFRs are non-functional requirements, and that defines like what's the responsiveness, or I can say the response time. I write it RES and dot, which means response time, and like error percentage, which is the acceptable error percentage. Along with that, these NFRs must define that what pages to test or the flow. So these you should be knowing. If you don't know anyhow, I mean, if you don't have an NFR which defines the pages to test, you always have to ask this to the product team. Or you can just write like based on the application. Let's say that this is the application. I know you can think of any application that what's the creamy area of that application which brings the business. Like if this is an application and this is my it sells a lot many products. Okay, so I know that if a user is going to order something, that's bring money to the business, and that's going to be my most critical flow. Okay, so think about any application that, okay, what's the application is doing, and from where the business is actually making money from that application. So that's going to be the most critical first you can think of. But again, I mean, if you identify those as well, you have to go for a review with the business or with a person from where these requirements are coming to you. You are not going to be a kind of person like you started uh, doing a performance testing on your own, but the correct way is to come the requirement to you from the upward to you. So you mean, I mean, from the product team, from the architect team, from the business, the requirement should be coming to you that, okay, these are the pages you have to test, and you have to identify that what's the capacity, what's the request per second, and what's the responsiveness which this page can handle. Okay, so those things should come to you. If those are not coming to you, you have to go with things listed from your end, like these are the pages I targeted, these I found like most critical pages for the business, and just review that these pages looks okay to you, so that I can go performing a test against these pages. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
I have also one question. If a requirement says, for example, this application can handle 1,100 users at a time.
Right.
This is minimum. That means up to 1,100 users can be handled. So
Right.
what if we can check for by increasing the load, for example, 1,150 users, then 1,200 users? What type of testing is this? If we keep on increasing to see how much more application can handle,
Right.
apart from the given requirement.
That's yeah, that's a good thing. So let's say you were given the requirement, and now the thing you were talking about is you were just trying to find out the maximum capacity, like what maximum we can go. So first thing, like if you don't initially know that what maximum you can go, so such testing is known as incremental. Okay, so incremental testing, this is the way of actually defining the maximum capacity. So what you have to do, you have to keep increasing your users or load after certain interval. Let's say you are running with 1,000 users, so you can have it in a single test plan. I will let you know that how to design such a test plan or such a scenario. There you can have 1,000 users running for 10-15 minutes, and then you keep looking at the response time and error. If there is nothing, I mean the response time is fine and there is no error percentage, again it will increase some more users, like 1,100, and then 1,150, 1,200, 1,250, and then keep on increasing. At a certain point of time, you will notice that, okay, my response time is now degraded much. My application is started throwing error. So such design is known as incremental design or incremental testing. And this is done to find out the maximum capacity.
Okay, thank you.
So this would be under stress or load testing?
Not exactly, because load testing that's definitely not a load testing. Again, you cannot call it a stress unless you find out the maximum capacity. So you are now in that case, in an incremental manner, actually what you are going to do, you are going to define the stress or the maximum capacity for your application. Once you stabilize that okay, these much are the users which my application can handle, which is acceptable, then you can call that a stress one.
So the incremental testing would be neither load testing nor the stress testing, right?
Sorry, can you please come again?
Incremental testing, what you have said, it would be neither the load testing nor the stress testing.
Test. No, this is going to be incremental testing.
Okay.
Yeah, once you stabilize, or once you got like this is the maximum capacity and you stop at that much of users, that defines your stress one. So here we are in a process of finding the maximum capacity. That is not a stress testing, that's an incremental testing we are currently performing. All right, so where was I? On designing test plan, we talked about the different flows. Okay, now let's quickly talk about So basically, I said like there can be multiple flows into or in an application, and you have to be certain that what exactly you are covering. Sorry. In our design, let's just target the launch page. Okay. I just want to hit the launch page. See, I mean, being a demo session, it's quite not that like I mean every aspect can be covered. So the purpose of this demo was just to walk around at what exactly we are going to cover and what things you will be learning throughout this course. And on that, I'm just going to quickly show you that how you can quickly add this launch page into your test plan, or basically you can design a script for this launch page. And for this launch page, I mean, what exactly I'm going to do is using this application, launch page only, converting that into a script in the JMeter. Okay, so quite simple it is. I mean, if you are already familiar with the dev tool, you can look at the dev tool itself. So currently we are going to design the test plan manually. Okay, but designing test plan manually is quite not easy.
Please,
And
sorry
you
to-
might
Please,
Sorry?
sorry to interrupt you, please. Sorry to interrupt you. How did you get to this page, please? Because what I have on my page on my JMeter is test plan, comments, undefined variables. That's what I have. I'm not yet here.
this one.
Yeah, how did you get here? How did you get to this page?
So this is the very first page. If you launch the JMeter, you will get this only, nothing else.
I'm not getting that.
I think you should be, because okay, let me try. See, I mean, if I just click on jmeter.bat, another, you can open multiple instances. So
Okay.
here you see, I mean,
Mhm.
this just popped up, and you see
Yeah.
another JMeter has opened with just this thing.
Okay. Why is it? Okay, yes,
I
yeah,
can,
this is what I have. You're right. This is what I have. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, this is what I have. Sorry.
yeah. And one thing you can just quickly adjust is from the options menu, look and feel. You might change the look and feel you want as per your choice.
Okay.
So currently, if you want a white theme, you can go for this.
Okay.
You might be having the dark one. So
That's what I have.
doesn't matter.
Exactly. That's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So what exactly we are going to do here is design the test plan manually. When I talk about designing manually, it's like adding all these different pages into any flow or in any flow, adding those manually, and it's not easy. It's like chances of having errors, and again, I mean, it's quite time consuming. Okay, so no one actually do or design a test plan manually unless it's just a one page or it's just like a one or two APIs. Okay, well, if you are given the requirement to do a test plan for a flow which have more than 2, 3, or 4 pages, the only easy way is just going through the recording option. Okay, and for this we have inbuilt JMeter recording and another extensions. So for now, I mean, in our case, we are going to use Blaze Meter extension to record our script. I will show you that how you can use the JMeter recording as well. I mean, the inbuilt recording option, but this I found more easy and usable for me. So I will use this one as well. Keeping time in mind, what I will do, I will go for a single page only, which is going to be the launch page. Designing it manually, not going through the recording option. As I mentioned, that with a single page, it's always easy to design it manually. So here, first thing, like if you have a website or if you have the application, for that you have to go, you can reload it into looking at the network tab, and you can find like there are different things, but you only concern about like this very first request. And since it's a get method, you need not to actually go into developer tool and looking for the get method, like for the URL only, that you can get from here. If somehow you are posting a login request, so those body details and form data you can get captured from the this network tab. But for now, since the launch page is always going to be the get method, so I just copied it into the Notepad++. So here is the protocol, HTTPS, and here is the server name or IP, and here is the path. So JMeter actually differentiate or bifurcate this entire URL into 3 parts. One is the protocol, one is the server name or IP, and the third part is the path. Okay, so now things will be a little bit quite new to you, but just keep remember, just accept it for now. Like in order to create a test plan, there are a few required or necessary things you have to add. You have to right click on your test plan, add a thread user, and then thread group. So this is the very first key element that you have to add, which will provide you with the virtual users or threads. Okay, and you can adjust the number of users or threads, like I was talking about 100 number of users or 1000 number of users. So those users or threads are actually provided by this element, which is thread group.
Okay.
So not to use 1000 for now, just go with by default 1 user and 1 ramp up, 1 second ramp up, and loop count 1 as well. So leave all things default for now. Another, on the thread group itself, click right, add a sampler. So these samplers are going to be the type of request you are trying to make. And in case of web application, we always deal with HTTP request, mostly deal with HTTP request. So since I already have a request URL, which has HTTP or HTTPS as a protocol, so this sampler, if you right click on thread group, go add a sampler, you will find multiple samplers listed here. And these samplers are actually listed here for different applications. Like if I have to test the database, I might be using JDBC request. But for now, I mean, my application is running on HTTP protocol or HTTPS protocol. I will be using HTTP request. So samplers are what type of applications you have, and based on that, you have to choose your appropriate sampler. All right, so I will be clicking on HTTP request. Once I click it, now you identified like there. Sorry, there are 2 sections. On the left hand side, we are adding the things. On the right hand side, the details are reflected. I click on thread group. The thread group related details are there. I click on HTTP request, and HTTP request details are there. Let's quickly modify the things. So here is the protocol, or exactly the protocol that what my application is running on. And you will notice this part is going to be HTTPS because my application is running on HTTPS. So what I will do, I will copy and paste this protocol here. Server name or IP, I told like this JMeter bifurcates the entire URL in 3 parts. One is the protocol, one is the server name and IP, and the third is the path. So this is going to be under the server name or IP section. And the path is going to be this one. And if you do these things in your recording, all things will be done by the extension for you. You need not to bifurcate, and you need not to distribute these protocols and request and then path. So you need not to do anything. All things will be done by the extension itself. So that's the thing. I mean, that's the reason I said like extension or the recording handles lot many things on its own. You need not to adjust these details. Then again, the protocol is, I mean, the method is going to be get. So if the application is running, I mean, requesting different methods, like you are recording the login it will automatically capture whatever method is there, like post will be there. So it will be automatically a post. So in our case, it's just the get method. And one thing, if you click on it, this HTTP request, you can rename it as well. So let's rename it to launch page. You can put a comment as well. But for now, let's keep those things as it is. So what we have done, we have added a thread group. Within that, we have added a sampler of type HTTP request. We renamed it. We put the protocol, we put the server name or IP, and we put the path. Okay. Another element you have to add, which is required, is the listener. So right click on thread group, add listener, and add a view results tree. All right, so we are done with this test plan. Basically, we have created a JMeter script or a test plan. Do remember that within a test plan, we can, I mean, it's quite confusing sometimes when we call it a test plan or we call it a script. Okay, refer these two items as a single item, because a script is like JMeter call that as a test plan, and this is a script within this test plan. You cannot have more than one test plan in a JMeter. So once you open or launch a JMeter, you will get a test plan, and that's actually hold some script or hold some detail like different pages, thread groups, different elements like listeners. Okay, so combination of all these different things, we call it script, or sometimes we call it as a test plan. All right, so we are done. Now we have a just single page. So what it will do if I run it through these buttons. So there are two buttons. One is the start and start no pauses. So these buttons we will be using to starting or running our test. And a quick, I think these few buttons like this save and this open, this cut, this copy and paste, and this you can use for expand and collapse. And these are the clear buttons. We'll keep using these buttons on the further runs and executions on coming sessions. But for now, in order to run this, what I have to do is just click on this start button. Before that, go to the view results tree and now click on start. Since this is not yet saved, it will ask you to save this test plan, where you can ignore it or you can save it. It's up to you. You can save it and give it a name at any location that will save you. Let me do that, by the way. So always remember that the script or the JMeter script is always ends with the extension .jmx. And now you can give it a name like pet store underscore launch page. And you just save it. And your test will start. You can see at the right top corner. It took around 6 seconds. Okay, so here the timer starts. Once you click on start, the timer starts, which indicates like how long your test ran. And another thing you notice here is 0 by 1, which means currently 0 users are running and there were 1. So if you just hover it, it will display the information. Okay, so out of 1, 0 is currently running. Since I was having a 1 user with 1 loop, what happened, my 1 user just hit this launch page and come out. That detail I can find into view results tree. So if you click on it, you will get many details. There are 3 sections. One is the sampler result, one is the request, one is the response data. So sample result will show details like which thread, when this was started, what was the load time. This load time is actually the response time. All these times are in milliseconds, so you can convert it like 6.3 seconds. The connect time itself was 6 seconds. So initially, in order to connect to the website, It took around 6 seconds. This was the size and a whole lot of details. Actually, this needs to, I mean, you can just go through it and just try understanding. Like most of the things are quite understood, like response code. There was no response message and few other details. And in the request, you can find like this was a get request to this URL. And in the response data, you can see the response body and the response header as well. Now these details are quite detailed for now. I mean, since you are quite new to this tool and I walk you through into that much detail, so not to worry on it. This was just a quick look like what details we can get into this view results tree. And if you want
so here
to look
you
at
performed a single action, right? So if
Yeah.
I want to run the application complete workflow performance, so how do I do it?
So a complete
If you want to run the
workflow,
complete workflow.
you mean covering multiple pages, like from launch and
Yes.
then login?
Yeah. The several
so-
pages we need to navigate, and finally we are submitting the form. So
Yes, exactly.
in that case, how we can do it?
So in that case, see, I mean, there are two options. Either you can go manually adding those pages like I did for login. For launch, you can add another sampler, add a sampler, HTTP
So
request.
each page we need to add separately?
Yeah, but this is a manual design, which is quite, I mean, time consuming and quite difficult. So we do not go through this option. We go through a recording option. Like, I mean, if you have used like the Selenium extension in Firefox, okay, so you need not write to, I mean, go through the writing Selenium script from scratch, but what you have to do, you just go through that extension, you keep browsing, you keep, I mean, navigating the steps, and that will be recorded and converted into Selenium script. The similar way, there is the extension for JMeter available for different browsers, Chrome, Firefox, and then different browsers. So what you have to do, you have to enable that extension in Chrome, let's say. And what you have to do is, like, once you enable that, you keep navigating all the pages, and all those actions will get recorded and get converted into the JMX or different pages you will get here. Now you will basically end up recording all those different pages, converting into a JMX script or JMeter script. Now, I mean, that's the way we actually design our.
In the real time, that recording option can use?
In the real time, only recording option is generally used. Because I mean, if you are given an application with 10 different pages, it's not easy to go manually, you know, looking at the headers details, looking at the form data, and then multiple details. I mean, that's quite difficult to do. So we always opt for recording.
Okay. Okay, one more thing, how we'll get the report in Excel sheet? So for the configuration we need to set up?
I mean, which configuration?
No, once you run the script, right?
Right.
If you want to make the report in Excel, is there any configuration required?
No, I mean, it's not configuration. Like we added this listener view results tree. Likewise, there are different listeners like summary report and aggregate report. So this will provide you like.
We want to understand how we can export this result in Excel.
Okay, we need to export it. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I mean, exporting from view results tree is something that we do not recommend, but this is why I added. Being very basic, you get the details of what you did and what you received. Okay, but using different listeners, you can export that. You can write all the details you get here into a file. You can open that into Excel. Or you can save this data. Like if I run it, and now if I look at the, let me clear this result by clicking on this button. If I run it again, you will get such data like this data. Now it will. You can save this data as well, like summary.csv or something. Even you can write this data into a file. So that's we are going to deal while looking at the listener in detail. I mean, there are ways to write those data into Excel, and I mean, analyzing those things into Excel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right. So very quickly, what we did, we have one thread which is hitting this page one time. I can quickly demonstrate, like if I mean, instructing this thread or this user to repeat the things 5 times. Okay, so what will happen? This request will be repeated 5 times. That's quite simple. Like this is the child. You can use the control to select multiple things. You can drag the things up and down, but do remember that you are always keep out this view results tree at the test plan, because I mean, that will not make any difference, but just for the simplicity for now, just keep this view results tree and aggregate report, or initially you can add a like listener view results tree and aggregate report by clicking at the test plan rather than at the thread group. Now I moved these 2 items out of thread group. Now understand the child hierarchy very quickly. This thread group is a parent of this child, because if I collapse it, that child is gone. Now if I expand it, I get this child. So this is an element which is a child element of this. This is a parent of this. So this is a parent-child relation you have to understand. Since I'm applying things on this parent, the things will get applied to the child. Okay, so I updated the loop count for this parent, which is thread group 5 from 1 to 5. So what is going to happen now, this element which is inside this thread group is going to be repeated 5 times, and where you can see it in view results tree or in summary report. So if there is a previous result, you can clear that by using this one. And now if I run this test again, what will happen? This launch page will be repeated 5 times. Okay, so let's run it. Okay, quite quick, huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what happened? My user hit this launch page. Once the response received, it again go and hit the launch page. Once the response received, it again go and hit the launch page. So this thing has happened 5 times. Okay. Again, I mean, there are options to, rather than iterating it in terms of a loop count, I can run it for some duration, for let's say 1 hour. Okay, so what will happen? This launch page will keep on hitting for 1 hour duration with one thread. Now, if I have to evaluate the performance or to run it with more users, I can keep on increasing from 1 to 2, from 1 to 2, and 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10, 15, 100. But do not do this, because we are just dealing with a public dummy website. So it's not recommended to go that much beyond. I mean, not recommended to go more than 5 and 10 users. But this is the way we do it. We put some load for some duration. And this is very basic we are talking about. We will look at these combinations like multiple users hitting for specific duration, different pages, and then we will be looking at the report, like what's the average time, what was there any error, what was the data we sent and received, and all those details. All right, so I think that's quite enough for this demo session. We quickly created a test plan with a single page. We just looked at that, how we can quickly perform a run with multiple iterations and multiple uses, and a very high level that how we can look into the response and result of this, of the pages we have. Okay, so manually we added just a single page. That's what we get.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
One
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, like you move this view results tree above from the thread group, no? So like it would be, the results would be executed. Means it first
Yes.
move. Okay.
Yeah, because if you see that this is at the same hierarchy, right? So whatever is going to happen within this thread group will always be captured by this, because this is a test plan. Okay, so at the same hierarchy, these are going to have the what you say, I mean, the hierarchy is same, so whatever is going to happen in this thread group, that will be always captured. Similarly, if you can think, like if I add a since there is a single page, now you can think of like if there are two pages, like launch page 1 and launch page 2, and if I add a listener on this launch page 2 only, so only detail I will be getting for this launch page 1. Sorry, I said launch page 2, but it's launch page 1. So if I add a child listener to this page, this listener will only be getting the result of this one, not this one, because it has no scope of this. Okay.
Okay.
So,
yeah, got it.
yeah. So at the same hierarchy, you will get all the details which is there at the at the thread group. So you will get it. You can
Okay,
try.
so-
I mean, add it. Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
go
then
ahead.
What is the purpose? What is the purpose of moving the other two threads under the test plan?
It's
And
not.
we-
I mean, it's not that a very relevant use case, but that was more of a kind of understanding purpose that how that hierarchy works. I mean, you can make it as a use case if you want like that page to be looked very separately. Then you can add a standalone listener to that page that will capture the detail of that page only. But that's not very much helpful in most of the cases.
How to record the multiple page?
Yeah, that's I told, like either you can do it either manually, and when we talk about recording, you can use recording options available, which is a JMeter inbuilt option, and then there are additional tools available like BlazeMeter extension, and then there is another tool like Bad Boy extension available. So multiple options are available that can help you recording the multiple pages.
Okay.
That's what we will be learning. I mean, that's the part of this entire course. So we will be covering the recording probably in next class or after that class.
But one question there, like if there are multiple threads, then they would be executed simultaneously.
So that's the option you can control, right? So here things are given like run thread group consecutively, one at a time. So if you have multiple thread groups, if you do not check this option, all thread group will start at a time. If you check this option, the first one will get completed, and then the next one, and then the next one, and so forth.
And the HTTP method which I am using here, like we are using get here, no? So
Yeah,
what if
get
we
here.
use get to me?
Sorry.
Means for this we use get only. Like
I mean, that's completely depend upon the request type, right?
Okay.
So this request is just the get only. So that we have to use. If you try using different method, that will be an error for the application. But that will throw like method not acceptable. Okay? So whatever method is that for that specific URL that you have to use. And you need not to worry about like what method is there. You need not to note it or notice it, because once you go through the recording option, that extension or that the recording option will identify that what method is used on that specific page, and that will be, I mean, adjusted by the tool itself.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, 5 minutes.
How many
for-
classes will be?
There would be around 8 classes. Okay. Each around 90 minutes every Saturday, Sunday
Okay.
at 10 a.m. IST. So next Saturday, we are going to start this batch at 10 a.m. IST. And that's around 8 to 10 classes. So most of the topics we generally cover in 8 classes, but if there is something we are left with, we can adjust that.
Even the DB part also you will cover, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, what other questions we have? Yes, so all the recordings will be available. So I think if you already enrolled or if you're going to enroll, you will get login detail for you. So there you can get all the recordings. All right, any other questions? Are we good to close this?
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next week.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
all right, guys, thank you. And if you have any question that you can post, I just already provided you the details.
Thank you.
Is there any
Last-
WhatsApp group?
So I think once you get enrolled, you will be
Okay.
part of that WhatsApp group.
Okay.
Thanks.
So,
Bye.
one last quick questions. For this
Yeah, go
one,
ahead.
do I have to know the programming language?
Not much. We talked about it. Like if you already have a basic knowledge of programming, so like very basic, like if, for, variable related stuffs, scopes. So that would be enough, because programming is just the 5 and 10, not exactly 10%, but it's just the 5% of the entire course where we will be using that in the initial NGS or 223.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks all. Thanks for joining. Okay, I'm closing it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.